Welcome to Permission to Thrive. I'm your host, Suzi Lula. As a spiritual therapist for over 20 years, I have the honor and privilege of ushering women and mothers just like you on a journey from simply surviving to powerfully thriving. I also have the honor of raising our son, Will, who is now a young adult, with my longtime partner, Jamie, so I'm right there on the journey with you. Consider this your personal sanctuary, your space to meet your heart, embrace your messy, and come home to your most authentic, extraordinary self. My hope is that you leave resourced and inspired because you are here to shine. Welcome to Permission to Thrive. Hi, everyone. Welcome. I am delighted to introduce you all to Penny Chaisson, my beautiful friend and colleague. Penny is an award-winning hypnotist and intuitive. She fuses her knowledge and experience of the conscious mind, the subconscious mind, and consciousness to facilitate deep personal transformation. Penny is a #1 international best-selling author and the mom of 3 veterans. And in this episode, we talk about Penny's absolute belief and knowing that we each get to choose our own identity and how transforming our inner identity dramatically transforms our outer reality. We talk about the beliefs that keep us from manifesting with ease and abundance and how to connect with the inner experience of ease and abundance to create an outer life of ease, flow, abundance, and joy. We talk about how to come home to our most authentic self and how coming home to ourselves creates a life that reflects who we truly are. There are a few reasons I wanted to introduce you all to Penny. Penny has a way of communicating very abstract personal growth principles in a way that is simple, easy to understand, and easy to implement in your own life. And Penny is as passionate as I am that every single one of you is here to thrive. So I loved this conversation and know that you will as well. So please sit back. This is your time, your sanctuary, your sacred time to relax and receive. Enjoy, everyone. Welcome, Penny. And I obviously have formally introduced you, but I'm so excited to have you here today and to introduce you to all of my thrivers, this community, for many reasons. One of the reasons is the way that you live your life. You have created a life where you really walk your talk. You've created a very successful, thriving business, a really thriving life, and you do it in a very relaxed way that I feel so personally aligned with, and I feel very passionate about spreading this message that this way of life is not only possible for everyone, but it's really meant for each of us. So of the many reasons I wanted to have you on, that is one. So welcome. Thank you for being here. Very happy for this conversation.
I'm excited to be here for this conversation because I just love your energy and the message that you're here to share and the way that you work with people. It's something that really opens the door to a lot of possibility for people. It's not done in a way that people are like, oh, that's not for me. It's, oh, this is interesting. Let me see what else is there. And I love that about you.
Thank you. Well, as we dive in, my podcast name is Permission to Thrive. So I love just asking, what is your definition of thriving, and anything that you would want to share with everyone listening about your own personal journey around thriving?
Yeah, I think that thriving for me is really just being able to be at peace and to not be in a frenetic rat race of life. I mean, in business, certainly there are times that I have to sprint. That's nature. It's the way things go. But to be able to dial it back and to just be at peace just being. I mean, there are literally days where I will just walk outside barefoot, stand in the grass by the pool, and just be like, my God, this is so amazing. Like, I am so grateful that I can actually do this, that I don't have to go punch a clock. Not that there's anything wrong with that. It just wasn't for me anymore. And to just have the opportunity to be and to serve in a way that allows me to not be stressed.
Mm,
I think that's what thriving is. And we could take it a step further and talk about abundance and wealth creation and being able to go have experiences. But for me, it's more internal.
mm,
And when we have the internal, the external just shows up.
mm. I so appreciate that answer. I too am all about the internal, as you know. And so many questions are coming to me. The first comment, though, that I'll just make as an aside for everyone listening, I hope you all are falling in love not only with what Penny is saying, and the content of what you're saying so far is already so important. I want to dive into it, but also your beautiful communication with your beautiful Southern accent. So I forgot to say, and I would be remiss to not say, that I'm from New Orleans. You live in Mississippi. I just could listen to you speak the way that you speak. And I share this intentionally because the way that you speak also is very fluid. It's very melodic, and it's just got a beautiful pacing, and it reflects the content of what you just said, that you have created a life where sometimes you go out in your backyard and put your feet in the grass next to your pool. And I'd love for you to elaborate on that, because I think so many of us listening in this culture, we're taught it's a hustle culture and you've got to be busy. And I work with so many moms, and the idea of them going to put their feet in the grass. We know intellectually, of course, that's going to be helpful, but we just have such a challenging time giving ourselves permission, hence the title, Permission to Thrive. So I'm curious, in the clients or in your own personal journey, what do you see as the challenge in us giving ourselves permission to thrive, to be?
I think that one of the biggest challenges is that as we grow up, depending on the dynamic of our family and those who support us in the community, be it a church that we go to or the school that we go to, we're really conditioned to giving ourselves over to others, to put
Mm,
others' needs before our own. It can be subtle. It could just be a simple family value that we take care of others, and not that it's a mandate or anything of that nature. And basically what happens is that that very subtle conditioning, we tend to say no to ourselves instead of yes to ourselves. And then we may have a moment where, say, there's something in our heart of hearts that we really want to do. And I'm going to give an example of a family event, right? And someone's like, oh, we're having this huge birthday party, and maybe it's a second or third degree relative, it's not a first degree relative, and you have this thing that you really want to do for you. You've been waiting in your heart of hearts, it's where you're meant to be, and you say, well, I really want to be there. I'm going to take a pass this time because I want to, I don't know, let's just say go on a retreat. And someone may say to you, well, that's so selfish,
mm,
right? We can hear little things like that through life, and they may not have a big impact at the moment, but they sink in to our subconscious. So we may have a incorrect perception that it's selfish in a negative way to choose us first, when actually I love Abraham Hicks. I listen in the morning as I'm getting ready, and Abraham said, some people will say, well, you are being selfish. And the answer is, well, yes, I am. Because when I take care of self, then I'm more available to you. And yeah, I think that's really what comes to mind for me, that I see a lot, is it was expectations of others through life that we just always tend to delay what we want, because we've been told there's a milestone, a goal, an expectation that we need to adhere to.
100%. And I think, especially as women, and for me as a Southern woman, it is a cultural, familial thing of be the nice girl, give the other person everything first, put yourself last. It's a cultural way that we're taught that we can gain value and worth, and it's so erroneous. And
That's huge.
yeah, I'm so appreciative of what you're saying because you're speaking of really how to empower ourselves from the inside out, even when we may be receiving these cultural messages to the contrary, to say, stand in and embody that, yes, you may call it selfish in one way. I may call it selfish in another way because I've grown to know that when my cup is full, I'm actually of better service and higher service
Yes.
to you anyway. So I'm deeply appreciative, and I'm hoping that everyone listening can maybe be grasping for something in your own life that's honest and true and meaningful for you. Of maybe you're grappling with that. I had a client not long ago talking about the Jewish High Holy Days coming up and that inner struggle that you're talking about. And actually, it was literally the same thing. She was torn of going to a family event or wanting to go do her own personal retreat. So interesting that you said that. And so I think what you're speaking of is very real in people's day-to-day lives. And I'm just wondering, while those of you listening, I hope that you're really grappling with something real in your own life right now. And I'm wondering for you, Penny, did this always come easy for you? Did you have your own growing edge on it? How did you work with yourself? What gave you that muscle? Anything in that neighborhood you want to share?
Yeah, so I think typical for most people, we have experiences in life that, and either we cling to the family dynamic or we run from the family dynamic, right? And I would consider myself one of those who ran from the family dynamic. And it was because I saw certain members of my family who were sacrificing their mental and emotional well being trying to fix everyone.
Mm,
And I thought to myself, you know what? I'm going to be my own person. But knowing what I know now, I also realized that was a remembering of who I truly am, nudging me on my path. And if you don't understand what I mean, we all come here from a higher, greater creative source, whatever you choose to call it. And it's our upbringing that separates us from that. And there was just something that has always nudged me. There were many steps along the way, but I remember hearing a lot, you're being selfish, because I was doing what I wanted to do in my life. So I always got a lot of pushback from that. Fortunately, when I met my husband, he's one of these people that I have my hobbies, he has his hobbies, and we have our hobbies together. So we maintain our independent sovereignty and our teamwork. He doesn't have to do what I say, I don't have to do what he says. We find a way to support one another in the things that light us up. Now, in terms of being on my personal growth journey, that all started in fall of 2018 officially. And I say officially because there are some things that led up to it. But I began working in a group coaching program as a student, not working for it. I thought I was going in there for business. And what I found was it was all about me. And I felt like I was coming home to something. It's like I knew there was something more there. So it's been a journey of 5 years this month that I started doing this work and leaning into giving myself permission and noticing where I was denying myself something that was important. And you recognize that because there's resistance there. When you're denying yourself something important, your feelings, your emotions, you get into sadness, resistance, maybe even irritation, a little bit of anger. And I urge you, if you're feeling those emotions, ask yourself, what feels unfair about this? What am I losing by not doing this? Because when we experience those emotions, that means that our thoughts and our choices and our actions are out of line with what we're here to do.
mm,
And so that has been my compass, that has been my beacon. That has been my true north, not some big major impact goal, but to literally follow my soul's nudges that, oh, no, 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 Penny, you're going the wrong direction. Let's come back over here. Let's go this way. I hope that answered your question in the way that you would like it. If there's something you want me to elaborate on, or if you wanted me to go a different path, I'm totally
Well,
open to that. I have nothing to hide here.
well, you said so many really rich practices for us to unpack. We could unpack many of them, but I'll highlight just a couple of them. You started by saying we are all influenced by our family of origin, and we typically choose one of two paths: to be very influenced by them and stay tethered to them, or bolt and go in the opposite direction. And I find this fascinating. And I think that this leads into really your work in your area of expertise. I was also one who bolted from my family. But what I learned, and it's similar to what you're saying, but looks totally different on the outside. What I learned is, even though I bolted and I moved across the country and I'm creating my own life, what I realized was internally, I was still carrying a lot of those messages. And so internally, I was still tethered to the messages that I gained from my family of origin. And I, on my own journey, have had to learn to untether myself from that and tether myself to what you're speaking of, following those soul's nudges and promptings and using that as my true north. So I'm also hoping everyone listening is, in your own way, in envisioning where are you on your own journey of being tethered to that old story or being tethered to your own soul. And that to me is a very courageous path. And then you really spoke about when we feel these different emotions, they're messages to us of whether we're living in alignment or out of alignment. And I love that you spoke to that, because I think often in personal growth paths, we can often be taught to bypass all of that. So I'm appreciating that you brought it right here front and center. And so it leads me to my question for you, which is, we do all create this self-identity story. How you see me might be dramatically different than how I see me. But at the end of the day, the internal inner self identity that I'm carrying about myself is going to direct my outer life. So I'm very interested. This is really the heart of your work, of how do you work with us on the way that we identify ourselves and move from what you were speaking to that soul's prompting and true north.
Right. That is the work. That is where the lessons are. And I think that most people, like myself, just a few years ago, don't understand that we do have a subconscious identity. And so many times we will decide that there's something that we want to do or achieve, and we experience what a lot of people like to call self-sabotage. We get in our own way, we hit these ceilings, and we don't understand why. Our subconscious identity is made up of our values, the things that we believe about ourselves, the habits that we've incorporated as a result of those beliefs. And not all of them are in our awareness. You often hear people describe the mind as being like an iceberg. There's 5% above the surface and 95% below. When I ran the opposite direction for my family, that was not a clean break. As you said, you go through life cutting those tethers. Just this morning, I had an experience where I was passively listening to Abraham Hicks, was putting on my makeup, passively listening, and one phrase came through like it was on a bullhorn, and it was that humans have the belief that they have to suffer to get what they want.
Mm.
Immediately, I was taken back to sitting in church about talking about suffering and being humble and receiving your rewards when you die and go to heaven. And that's not what life is meant to be. But that's something I've never really given any thought to. But today I had the immediate realization I was carrying that story subconsciously. So all of these little things make up our identity, as well as key experiences. And what I really want to say is that we get to choose our identity.
Mm.
people will identify with, just to take your example earlier, we as women. As women, we can carry the identity of being the house manager, being in charge of the children. We manage vacations. We have the responsibility to make sure that there's food on the table, clean clothes on our children's back. And that comes from what we picked up from our parents. That doesn't have to be our identity. We can choose to change it. We can choose to hire a house manager. We can have a housekeeper. We can have someone who takes the kids back and forth to school, so that if you're like me and you're an entrepreneur, my children aren't at home, but if they were, that would free me up to be able to focus my focus hours on my business. And then at the end of the day, be mentally available to my children. And it's the same thing if you're in corporate, right? We don't even realize sometimes that we've bought into this idea that we have to do everything, and we may carry a story that we're not a good mother if we don't, or that we're inadequate in some way. We can change that identity by, one, taking a look at our subconscious values, because every decision that we make is influenced by our top 3 to 5 values. And if you don't believe me, you can go to Google. There's a ton of psychology and psychiatry papers written about this, that subconsciously that's where we choose from.
Yeah.
But it's not just the value. We have stories around the values, and we can change all of that at any time. That is how we reprogram our mind. We reframe our life, and we create what it is that we want.
This is so rich. So again, I'm just going to reflect back to everyone some of the really powerful statements that I think I'm hearing you say when you said, we get to choose our own identity. I think this is a takeaway of all takeaways. We get to choose our own identity. So everyone listening, just try that on. Just try it on and see how it feels in your heart. You may be saying, yes, but just be willing to take on that. That is a phrase I'm taking away today. I get to choose my own identity. It may entail some practice and some reprogramming of my unconscious and some untethering of the beliefs that are still knotted up and tangled up. Yes, it may entail all of that, in which I will be calling you, and anyone listening, call Penny. And I get to choose my own identity. And if that is not an empowering takeaway, that those are not just a phrase and words. That is, and I'm a testimony to that. I am choosing my own identity. And the other thing that you said was about, we are so indoctrinated to believe that we need to struggle in order to thrive. And what I've learned is that struggle actually inhibits thriving. So to really allow ourselves, again, I say, especially as women, for any of you listening, just take one moment to give yourself the permission to even envision, wow, I could actually thrive by, quote, doing less. I could thrive by relaxing more. I could thrive. Am I actually willing to believe that I don't need to struggle? And I think we would all say, yeah, of course I want to believe that, or I do believe that. But I know in my own life, there have been times when things are flowing and coming so easily. And my husband always says, oh, baby, I have the Midas touch. And I'm in this flow and I live for the flow. I follow the flow. And then I have those unconscious thoughts that come into my conscious awareness. Wow, this is so easy. Is it supposed to be this easy? So I'm appreciating both of those things. And then the last thing I'll reflect back that I think I'm hearing you say is around our values. And you're speaking about, we have a few core values. And again, I know for myself, one of my core values is around connection. And one of my core values is around spaciousness. And I can hold those values, but then to actually manifest a life where I live a spacious life, it may bump into those old beliefs of, well, you've got to be working harder and it can't be that easy to raise your children. You can't have somebody coming over and cleaning your house. That you're a better mom if you clean your own house and do your own laundry and have your own dinner on the table by 6 and all of the things. So the phrase that's come to me almost since the first word out of your mouth is self-abandonment. And I think that a common thread to everything that you're saying is when we're saying yes to the things that don't align with our soul, so to speak, we're really saying no to our own soul. We're abandoning our own soul. And that
Yes.
journey is, to me, the most courageous one. So anything you want to jump in on with any of the things I'm saying, they're all
Yes.
coming from you.
Two things. Number one, if you have a hard time envisioning all of this, give yourself permission for 15 minutes. Give yourself 15 minutes. Take your shoes off, take your socks off, go plant your feet in the grass, and just take some nice deep breaths in and out and notice all of the blades of grass, the leaves on the trees. It is absolute abundance all around you. The trees don't count how many leaves they have, right? So we're surrounded by just this natural flow of abundance around us. Now, science now shows that when we plant our feet in the grass, we literally ground our negative energy into the
Mm,
ground. It's the same thing as putting a grounding rod for your house into the ground to ground the electricity. When you put your feet in contact with the grass and the ground, they say that the change happens so quickly you can barely measure it because it's such a rapid shift. So that is the first thing that I would like to share with you. The second thing is I hear so many people talking about wanting to come home to themselves.
mm,
They feel as if they don't belong. And this might be a little deep, but this is instantly what came to me to share when you asked that question. When we have this sense that we don't feel as if we belong somewhere, that there's something missing, usually in my experience, that's our awareness of our connection to our soul. Because there is a part of us that always remembers the bliss, the joy, that feeling of love that we came from. And from my perspective, I think that a lot of times that's what we're missing. And if we take that same time that we go outside and plant our feet in the grass and just tune our antenna to love, to tune it to peace, to a feeling that we associate that all is well, we can fill that space. It is so much simpler than we as humans make it out to be. And I'm not perfect here. Let me tell you, I get caught up in my stuff and I'm like, well, wait a minute, Penny, take a step back. You have gone off the rails here, sister. What are you doing? And I tune into that energy
mm,
and it brings me back.
mm. As I'm hearing you, even without being outside right now, just hearing you envision blades of grass, leaves on a tree, the abundance, the feeling tone, and then as you moved into aligning with that deep feeling of peace and love, and that within us, within each one of us, there is the real you. The real you is there. It's your childlike nature. There is a you when we take a moment to just ask ourselves, who am I really? Who am I really? There is a space inside when we give ourselves either the space or the consistent space, because often it doesn't just come on a dime. It often takes that cultivated space to invite it to come in. But there is a space within each one of us that anyone listening, if someone asked you, who is the real you? What is your authentic you? Who are you really? There is a place inside of you that does know who you are. You may have well abandoned it for years, as I know I have, and many of us go off and come back home, as you're saying, come back home to
Yep.
ourselves. But every one of us can describe that there is an authentic place within us. And it reminds me of that phrase, a childlike nature. I'm just remembering my own son. He's in college now, but I'm remembering his first 10, 12 years of life. He spent most of his time in the backyard, digging ditches, filling the ditches with water, taking the mud from one side of the backyard to the other. His hands were in the earth. And what you're speaking about, grounding ourselves in the earth, there's no accident that kids like to play in the earth. And the phrase with a child, their work is their play and their play is their work. They don't see any kind of difference. Before anyone culturally teaches them the difference, them wheeling mud from two sides of a backyard to helping you unload the laundry. Or I can remember my son, oh my God, he would just love helping me Windex the windows. They don't have a difference in their mind between work and play and work. And so I'm wondering if you could elaborate on how you work with your clients, whether it's their personal life, or I know you really work a lot with entrepreneurs, and this idea that we actually can really create a very thriving, successful business in a way that does align with our values and that is easy and effortless. And you're very outspoken about we don't need to be in the hustle culture and the burnout culture. And
Right.
I'd love for you to speak to how you're working with individuals and anything you'd like to share around that.
Well, we get to build our business and our life to look like whatever we choose it to be. And when people reach out to me, it can be for a variety of reasons. But one of the first things that we do is I do some identity work with them, and I don't tell them what I'm doing. What I do is I send out a benefits form. What are the benefits that you're going to receive from doing this work with me? And people will list any number of things. And usually, right off the bat, I can spot a pattern, but I dive into what does this look like? What are you doing? What are you thinking? And we will go layers deep. And I can tell you it's uncanny. The majority of people want to be confident, expressing themselves exactly as who they are, and not to be worried about abandonment, judgment, right? To not be caught up in cycles of needing external validation, because when you keep in mind the piece of identity, our identity in our business is not separate from our personal identity. Our personal identity is going to drive our business decisions. So a lot of people come to me because they're like, I know there is the potential for so much more, and there's this ceiling, or I'm getting in my own way. I don't know what's missing, but something is missing. And what we're doing is we go in and we tap into that authenticity that you were talking about. And when we peel back and deprogram and reprogram these layers of identity around how we're supposed to show up. Is work supposed to be hard? Do I feel guilty that it's easy? That comes up a lot for people, right? They carry this belief that, and they know it's erroneous, right? But it's like, I feel guilty because my parents work so hard, and here I am making 10 times as much as they do, and it's so easy. So we just work through a process of deprogramming and reprogramming these things. So wherever that resistance is bumping up in your life, or you feel like you're not moving through it, just really ask yourself, what do I believe about this situation? And you can start peeling those layers back, because that's what I start doing with people, so that they are empowered and have the self-belief and the self-trust to either grow and scale their business in a way that is aligned, and not judging themselves for not doing it like all the big marketers out there, or they can trust themselves to restructure their business in a way that they're not at the center of that business having to do everything. And it really just depends on what somebody wants. I'm really a blank slate when we go into this work, because I don't consider it my place to tell people how to live their life. I peel back the layers and give them the tools to create the life that they want, because I don't know anyone's karma. And first and foremost, it's my job to be sure that I don't put anyone off of their path, whatever that path is.
Mm.
And I don't have the personal power to know what that is.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. I certify individuals to become certified coach in spiritual psychology. And one of my guiding practices is exactly that. I'm in service to you. So I'm following my client. I'm in service. I'm following their lead.
And when we are an active listener, you can see when certain words carry resonance. And that's the secret sauce.
Yeah, exactly. And I think when I'm training coaches, that is one of the guiding principles, as you're saying, it's deep listening to the energy that someone is carrying under the words they're saying. So three different people could say the same phrase, but the energy that three different people are carrying about the phrase they're saying, three dramatically different sets of energies. And that endlessly fascinates me. I love learning about, well, what is that to you? And really getting in there and redirecting it all. And that's what you do really so brilliantly. And so, is what you're saying that when you're working with individuals, let's just say around being an entrepreneur, expanding your business, what you're saying is that you deeply listen to what that individual values, what that individual is seeking, and where they're getting caught in their own story. So anyone listening right now, you may be applying this to either your business, your intimate relationship, your relationship with your children. So we all have these values that we're seeking to manifest and create. And you're saying we get snagged in different ways. And when we learn to unearth those, that would be our subconscious, as you work with the subconscious, the unconscious, really inviting it, welcoming it. Oh, I'm caught, I'm caught, I'm caught. Sometimes we can redirect ourselves. And sometimes it's so beneficial to work with someone else who can, in just a nanosecond of time, to redirect. And I think that's also what I'm trying to do with these. And you have your own podcast, which we should also mention here. I know you're revamping it, so forgive me. Tell me the new name, because I was going to say Design Your Destiny, but
yeah, it's Design Your Destiny. But if this episode comes out on October 11th or later, it's Penny on Your Thoughts, Leverage Your Subconscious for Success.
And I will have that on the show notes for sure. But my point being is that this is why I think each of us do these podcasts, is to offer these episodes so that someone can create a roadmap internally for yourself and or reach out to gain support of an individual or a community. So are there any, I want to say, takeaways, full circle comments, anything that you would like to share as you're just maybe thinking about the thread of what we've spoken about that comes to you to offer?
Yeah, I think bring it back to its simplest starting point, which is to simply develop your awareness around what you're feeling, the reason that you're feeling that way. Because sometimes, as I give these analogies like I've given, I can get very high level. Like you say, it gets really rich. Don't think that that means you're not there yet. Whoever you are, wherever you're listening, you are where you are right now, and you are exactly where you were meant to be. You will get out of this exactly what you were meant to get. And simply start by being aware of your feelings and your thoughts, and come back and listen to this episode time and again, because Suzi, I love the questions that you've asked. And every time you listen, you will get something more out of it. That's just the way these things go.
I could not agree more, because we spiral up in consciousness and in our evolution. And so we hear the same question from a different place. And some of the questions, just to bring it full circle, that I heard you ask that are, to me, great takeaways. Do I really believe that this could be easy? Do I really believe that this has to be a struggle? Am I willing to begin to lean into the promptings of my soul over the messages of my past or the messages of my family? Am I willing to envision that this could be easier than I think? Am I willing to go take 10 minutes and put my feet on the earth and feel those blades of grass and look at those leaves to put me in a state of abundance and ground my energy? Am I willing to say yes to myself and perhaps no to someone else in order not to self-abandon and to say yes to myself? Any other questions? I mean, there must be 20 questions that we could write out listening to this episode. I hope everyone's taking notes. I was taking mental notes, and I will listen to it again because, as you're saying, these questions, not only are they so rich, but they are the questions that will free us to live that liberated lifestyle where we're not tethered to culture or our past. And it does, as you're saying, allow us to live in alignment with our highest self identity, like that soul identity, or however someone wants to language it, your most authentic values.
Yeah. And I think above all, as you begin this work, take the steps that you can believe in, and
Mm-hmm.
it will build your believability. But when you peel back the layers, one of the things that we can do is we begin this work and we have honest reflections with ourselves. It's easy to slip into self-judgment. No, 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 no. Have grace, love, and compassion with yourself. You are where you are because it's where you're supposed to be.
So beautifully
And just
said.
allow yourself to go forward. If I could, and I feel like you're the same way, Suzi, if I could wish for one thing in this world, it's that for everyone, all 8 billion plus people for 15 minutes at the same time, we could all stop
Mm,
and just love
mm,
for 15 minutes.
mm.
We would literally change the entire planet. We actually only need 1/2 of 1%, but I'm going for the moonshot here.
I'll take it with you. And I think that's such a lovely way to close out right now. I would just love for even 15 seconds for all listening right now to just begin. Let's begin with self love. And for 15 seconds, as we're closing out, maybe place your hand on your heart and be willing to see yourself in your highest light, to invite out that real part of you, and then just begin to spiral it out. See it for a neighbor, see it for a friend, spiral it out, see it for Penny. I see your business growing and thriving and the way that you are then able to support so many individuals. And for everyone listening, your own lives expanding and just seeing it for the 88 billion plus individuals, as you said. So I can't think of a better way to complete. I couldn't thank you more. I love every opportunity to get to speak to you. And I have obviously where everyone can find you in the show notes, but please, everyone, go to Penny's podcast, your website, your Instagram. You're just a wealth of beautiful, beautiful energy. And I thank you so much. Any upcoming things that you want to share that people should know besides your new branded podcast?
Yeah, so we just yesterday officially launched Amplify Success, and it's literally step by step the process that I have learned to integrate into my way of being, to work through these stories, to develop that awareness, and to reprogram that in my mind. So we'll create a special link, pennychaisson.com/Suzi, so that it's easy for people to find. So it's a very succinct mini course. Time is valuable, so we keep it short to the point. I keep it short to the point, and you can just rinse and repeat and peel and peel and peel and develop that self-awareness.
I can't recommend you highly enough. Everybody check out Penny, and many more conversations to come. Penny, thank you so much. Always love talking to you.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it again.
You got it. I wanted to leave you all with a quote that Penny shared that I love. Penny says, "When you fully know who you are and you are in a state of self-trust and self-acceptance, confidence is not an issue." I hope that you had many takeaways from this episode. I know that I did. And as always, if you did receive takeaways, I would love it if you would hit that subscribe button so that you won't miss an episode. Perhaps consider writing a 5-star review because that will assist us in paying it forward. It truly assists us to get this message out to more individuals that you are truly here to thrive. So much love, everyone, and see you next week. Thank you so much for listening If there was something in this conversation that spoke to you, we'd so appreciate it if you would take the time to subscribe, leave a 5-star review, and share this episode with women and mothers you know, because you are here to thrive. See you next time.